Nice. Okay. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you guys are. Thank you guys for tuning in to the second episode of the Listen Buddy podcast. So, this is the first real episode of the podcast. I'm going to be your host, Zed, and today we're going to be talking about social activism. I do have a bunch of lovely guests with me, so I'm just going to unmute them, and then we're just gonna have a little introduction. So, just give me 1 second. All right. So, thank you guys. If you guys want to introduce yourself, why don't we start with Alex?
All right, hey, I'm Alex Quach. I'm a fourth-year computer science student at U of T, and thanks for having me on the show.
Damn, that shit sounds memorized. Great job. Okay, so Twin.
Hey, my name is Alex Twin. I'm a fourth-year statistics student at University of Waterloo, and thanks for having me on the show.
Nice. All right.
Hey guys, what's going on? My name's Raghav Sharma, and I'm currently a fourth-year student. I study biology stuff, and I'm really glad to be here.
Nice. Okay. Zahab.
What's poppin', guys? My name is Sohab Wasim. I'm a fourth-year CS student. Thanks for having me on the show.
All right, and Jason.
Hi, I'm Jason, and I also study statistics at the University of Waterloo, and I'm also a fourth year.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on the show.
No problem, buddy. Okay, so we have a bunch of different kinds of people. We got a bunch of math guys, computer guys. We got a bio guy. Cool stuff. So, the topic that we're going to be talking about today is social activism. So I want to start off by asking you, what do you guys define as social activism? What is like the benchmark that makes someone a social activist? Why don't we start with Quach? Like, what do you think that like social activism really is?
I guess when someone says social activism, I think of like people who like would like go down to like city hall or like parliament to like protest about like social issues that are bothering them, like Black
Right.
Lives Matter, stuff like that, for example.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I tend to think of when someone says social activism.
So when
For me, I think it's kind of like when anybody takes a stance on a matter, I think that becomes social activism at that point. I don't think necessarily protesting, you have to be protesting to do social activism. I think it's any sort of action or any stance you take that can sort of envelope social activism.
Okay, so if you believe that, do you think that anyone that posts an Instagram story, does that make them a social activist?
That's a good question, and honestly,
yeah,
based
dude.
on my definition, I think that I kind of do have to apply that just to be sort of, not going against my point. Of course, personally, I don't entirely believe the things that people say, especially when they're taking really radical stances on their social media platforms. I don't think that really entails what activism is, but it is activism nonetheless on a social platform. So
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, that's kind of how I believe.
That's fair. So do you think that when people, you guys understand the concept of virtual signaling?
Yep.
No.
No,
yeah,
yeah,
no.
could you explain it?
Yeah,
Can you
it's
explain that to me?
Okay,
Yeah.
so I mean, virtue signaling is essentially It's essentially when people they're just trying to post a good image. They don't actually believe in the concepts that they preach. So like, if someone posts, I don't know, let's say a black square, or they post like a something supporting Uyghur Muslims or Hong Kong, right? They post that in the sense that it just makes them look good and conform with society. Do you think that's a form of social activism?
Nah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I think it does, because even though it's not, even though like they are like, they don't mean, they don't have the good intentions of like doing
Right.
it. I think it still helps the cause for it, so I don't think there's much of a problem with it.
Right.
Wait, actually, yeah, sorry, I agree with Zob. I think he
I
put it well.
disagree with that.
Why, Jason?
I don't think it's effective because I think eventually you get to the point where it loses its meaning.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I think it comes off as very disingenuous. Like, obviously,
Yep.
I think us as a fact, we know that a lot of the people that post these things, they don't actually mean anything that they post. Like,
That's
one
true.
day we'll see them post this, and the next day, you'll see them do, some messed up stuff. Obviously, that doesn't mean that they don't believe in this, but like, you get a general idea, right? I think a lot of this went down, especially when a lot of the protests went up. um, especially with the black squares and stuff. I think that a lot of people posted in support of what they do, but I think it's it becomes a little different when people are virtue signaling, but there's no action backing it up. Like I think to make an actual change in society, you need political progress. How do you guys think change is developed in society?
Uh, like with, I mean,
Yes,
obviously it's like legislation and
yeah, it's legislation,
political
right?
movements, but where do you define what a political movement is? Like, I think just any form of activism, as Raghav said, was like enough to at least
Hmm.
push it forward, you know?
The legislation. Do you think
Or
that
like,
this contributes to that?
yeah, like from any like any black square that like someone uses to any form of like speaking out on like their preferred social media platform to
Hmm.
anything can contribute and help. Whether their intentions are good or not, I feel it doesn't really matter because it's still for that cause, you know?
Right, right.
Yeah, I kind of agree on that point with the intentions. I think a lot of times we kind of try to think about like a person's intent behind, whether they're posting like a black square, for example, to either look good or if they genuinely do believe in the sort of symbolism behind the black square. And I think at the end of the day, it's like, they're doing something, and for people who aren't doing it, they're not really doing it. It's like whether it's disingenuous or not, they're still doing something at the end of the day. So that's like greater than a net zero.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like you gotta start somewhere, right? Like,
for sure. For
Facts,
sure.
yeah.
if you
Yeah,
think
yeah.
if you think back to the like maybe for like history, for example, like I'm sure people in the past had their own version of posting like black squares. You know what I mean?
Right, but
Like it
like,
could be like putting up posters around town,
yeah,
like
yeah,
fucking town
getting,
hall
yeah,
meetings and stuff like
flyers,
that.
all that stuff. Yeah.
I feel like that's just our generation's way of like starting somewhere. You know what I mean?
Hmm. No, I agree. I think that regardless of the intention, it's good, right? It's like when millionaires donate, right? When millionaires donate, they donate, like a small fraction of their income, but it still means a lot, right? Regardless, they're
Oh,
still
yeah,
doing
that's a
something,
huge
right?
topic too.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. No, I agree. But regardless if it comes off disingenuous, it has an impact. So I think it's good for sure. So who do you guys think um that contributes more to the social change? Do you think it's men or women?
Oh man, that's a super. That's a.
Uh,
I wouldn't say necessarily I would divide in terms of gender because I think they both
You can
do
divide in
their
terms of a
own
lot of things,
parts.
right?
What? Yeah,
Like,
no, but I think when it comes to like a societal issue that affects everybody, like especially when it comes to racial inequality, well, I mean, in certain cases it does, prejudice upon a certain demographic. But I think in the terms of like, for example, as I said before, racial inequality, I think
mhm.
dividing amongst genders might be a little difficult. Like you can't make any blanket statement. I
But
think I
it
don't
doesn't
know.
have to be towards racial inequality, right? It can be to anything, really,
Yeah,
right? So
So
yeah,
anything?
yeah.
Like,
So I
like
mean,
because the
like,
scope is so broad.
yeah, it's a
I feel
very
like since you like made such a broad scope, I feel like personally like my opinion or my views might be biased. But I guess what was your question? Like what are you defining here? Like male
yeah.
or
Who
female?
contributes
Is that
more?
what you
Yeah,
said?
yeah, yeah, males or females?
I feel like females contribute more because I honestly think the problems facing like modern society tend to
Hmm.
affect females more than males. Like
Right,
stuff
right.
like wage inequality or abortion or
Hmm.
um the stuff with like that one like famous Hollywood director and
Right, right, right.
stuff like that. Like modern issues tend to be
Hmm.
I guess female issues
Right. I think females
because
definitely they have a larger role in it because like females have been through a lot more in the past, right? They've strived for equality
yeah,
for far longer, right? I think that's what you're
yeah,
trying to
that's
say, right?
what I'm trying to say. Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to say.
You know,
I
yeah.
agree, yeah.
Hmm.
Like, I'm a guy. I have no idea what the other, like, I can't say it from like a woman's perspective, but I
Hmm.
do think that women are more like active in causes, which is not a bad thing. It's a good thing to be more like active in, in uh
No.
progression, you know?
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand. I understand where you're coming from. So I went through a study, a millennial study on this, and it turns out that in general, male and like men as a whole are more, um, they're more consistent in like social media change. So here, wait, let me pull up the study real quick. I
Oh
think I have
boy.
and it's something that I found really interesting. I don't know, I don't necessarily know like why this is the case, but it's quite interesting. One second, let me find the. Oh man. Oh boy. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to that later because I think I've misplaced the study. But here, let's go to this other topic. So, do you think social activism generally has a background attached to it? Like in general, do you think that people have a cause? Like,
I feel like for the majority of like for social activism to occur, there has to be some sort of effect on the person on a personal level, in a sense, like especially with like Black Lives Matter. Many people could resonate behind the police brutality and whatnot. So I feel like in that sense, yeah. But as I mentioned before with the whole disingenuity thing, there's like those certain disingenuous social media people that, at the end of the day, they're still doing something, but they're probably not personally affected. So I
mm-hmm,
think at the end of the day, they're still trying to understand.
mm-hmm,
Perhaps they can never necessarily empathize because you can't necessarily step in the shoes of a black person, for example, when you're white or another race. So I think in that sense, it's kind of like a mixed bag, if that makes sense.
no, yeah, I completely agree. I think depending on the issue, obviously you're gonna be more attached to it, right? So like if you're Chinese or if you're from Hong Kong, then you're gonna be more attached to the Free Hong Kong, issue that's currently at place. So I think like depending on your background, it's gonna matter to you more, right? But like it's just in the current era, I don't see like too much of a cross between that, right? Like I see a lot of people who they may be Muslim and they're going to be posting about Uiguri Muslims or people in Lebanon, right? And that's great. I think there's nothing wrong with that. But like it, I feel like there are issues which are more pressing than others. One I would say is transgender issues. So I know the LGBTQ community has been through a lot, but there's been a lot of development in the last maybe like 15, 20 years. Like 20 years ago, if anyone came out to you as transgender, like they were very frowned upon. I don't know. It's definitely a lot better now than it was 20, 10, even 10 years ago, right? Like if anyone said, "Oh, I'm trans," you
Mm-hmm.
would just
Yeah.
they were like highly frowned upon, right? But I think people make these issues a lot larger than they really are. Um,
But
how do you guys feel
on
about that?
that topic,
Yeah.
you kind of need to make it. Oh, hold on. All right. You kind of need to make it large though.
Do you
Like
think so?
in I guess in the moment you're like, oh, it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
It's whatever. But then, like all the change that has happened in like the past because men's me uh making it a big deal.
And I mean another sort of topic on the whole LGBTQ movement. Like for us, obviously, it's not as much of a pressing matter. But when you look at, for example, like some of the statistics regarding like suicide rates, depression
Mm-hmm.
rates, those kinds of mental illnesses and whatnot
Right.
that go on, those
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things are like really large issues affecting those groups, and they're kind of being not really looked upon, especially with access to medication or any
Mm-hmm.
of those sorts of utilities. It's getting better definitely, but it's
Right.
still taking quite a lot longer than I believe it should.
Right. I feel like okay, so when we do say this, right? Like what portion of the population do transgender people make, right? They make less than
They're
1%.
like, yeah,
They make less
they're
than
really
1%.
they're
They're
a really small minority.
so like based on the
Are they?
yeah,
Yeah.
extremely
Oh,
small.
Way less than 1%.
Yeah, so based on the research, there are a total of 1.3 million transgender people in the United States. So with a country of 300 million, right? Like that's less than 1%. That's like 0.5%, right? So when you're focusing
mm-hmm.
on issues like this, like you're trying to pass legislation, I don't disagree. I think that it's important that you solve these issues because equality and it's something we need to be more progressive, right? But I do think that when you're advocating for issues like this, especially when it's not directly related to you, I think that you should like think about what is more, what's going to have more of an impact, right? Like, do you really want to support this change, or do you want to support something that impacts more people, or is, like more severe? Like, obviously, like people being dying of famine, or people dying of, you know, literally the execution happening in China in Jianping or Zhangjiang, so like that region. Um, like, do you think that it's fair that people, these issues are less looked upon versus like internal issues like transgenderism?
I mean, in general, like, when we're talking about minority populations, it's in a sense you're kind of, you know, pushing them aside their matters because they are such a small subset of the population, which I think in of itself is kind of not a good thing to do either. I think rather than sort of cast them aside, I think it is important to sort of course, I do believe there are, like, as you mentioned, there's in a lot of other countries there's literal human rights issues,
Right.
and I think those are more so external affairs though. So I mean, in terms of activism, for sure I do understand, but I think the one major thing is that it's not directly affecting the population of United States, or
Mhm.
that subset. So
That's
if it's
fair.
not really impacting them directly, it's kind of like it sounds rude, but you kind of don't really think about it. It kind of just
Mm-hmm.
happens.
No, I think that's fair. So, like, you're saying it's internal versus external, right? Like, you should care about what's happening
Yeah.
inside your country versus what's happening in the world, right?
Like, I think people are just almost inherently, I think us being selfish is just
Yeah.
kind of part of what we are, because we need to look after ourselves before we can actually help others. Put your mask on when the airplane's crashing, and then help the kids out and whatnot. That sort of. I mean,
Right.
I could be completely wrong on this too. This is more so just my own personal approach and take on things, but I think definitely,
Right.
like, a lot of people kind of think about themselves, and we kind of like to think that we don't. We like to think that we're better
Not
people, and
selfish.
we
Yeah.
try to look out for others, but we're just naturally selfish, and
Yeah.
that's kind of okay. I think it's okay to be selfish.
Yeah, I agree. It's like an inherent human quality, right? So it just happens. You guys have any other thoughts on this?
So, like, do you feel like because the LGBTQ plus the community is so small that, or is smaller than normal, that like these things should be like there are more pressing matters to
Yeah,
consider?
that's essentially what I was going for. I'm like, I think that there are more pressing issues, even in the United States, right? Like, I think Black Lives Matter, the police brutality, is a way more pressing issue than the LGBTQ issues that they currently face. Obviously, I still think it's important. I just think that you need to like, it's a priority list, right? Like, you prioritize what needs to be done first, and then you move on, right? Um, so, like, you deal with violence, police brutality, crime. You deal with stuff like this, and then you move on to issues that are less pressing, right? Like, I think it's just fair, right? Um,
I guess on sort of that kind of note, I think it's kind of hard to kind of discern between the two as well, because they're both like kind of different types of issues within
yeah,
two different
exactly.
types, like two different demographic groups. So, like, for example, like, Black Lives Matter, like, I think that's more of a systemic issue within, like, would that be the judiciary system, like the
Yeah,
entire line of the government. So I think that's more so for them, whereas for, like, LGBTQ members, I think that's more so it doesn't really fall under the government. It's more so a
100%.
societal sort of recognition of the group, and acceptance of the group. I think it's
Right.
kind of difficult. It's like comparing apples to oranges, at least for me, for what
You
I
think so?
think that matter.
Mm.
Yeah, I think, like, yeah, obviously in terms of, like, dealing with them in a sense, like approaching them, like, because the government does need to take their stances and sort of
Right.
you know try to help out with both types of matters. But I think there's just they're so vastly different, for
Mm-hmm.
me at least, I feel like.
I agree. Um,
Like, what do you mean, Zed, when you say like there's more there's like other like issues to address, as in like passing legislation for
yeah, I think it would generally be
certain things?
legislation or things you should advocate for before you advocate for this, right? Like, educating people, or like, you know,
Yeah.
it's not just one thing, right? It would be I don't know, teaching people. You can teach people about these issues, but I think that, you know, you should focus, like, in terms of legislation, you should focus on the larger ones. Like, okay, fix policing, fix crime in these cities, fix like the education system, fix the healthcare system. You know, like, work on these issues before you work on issues which are not necessarily affecting a large proportion of the population, and b, they're not, like, it's not like a I'm gonna die kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's less pressing than, you know,
Yeah.
someone's life.
But
Do you know what I mean?
doesn't that run into the issue of saying some people are more important than other, or in a sense, some issues are more important than other issues?
But don't you think that's the case?
I mean,
Do you think every issue
yes.
should be
My
treated
personal
equally?
opinion is yes. Like some issues are more take should definitely take higher precedence
Right.
than others.
Right, right.
But who
Mhm.
kind of has like the right to decide that? Though?
Exactly. Yeah.
kind of the
That's
question.
that's
That's
what I
us,
was
though.
trying to argue. Like,
I think what I'm
That's the
saying.
people.
Yeah, it
Let
should
the
be the
people
people.
decide what issues are important.
Well, I'm going after like a
okay,
utilitarian philosophy, right? Where it's like whatever you should focus on what helps the most amount of people first, you know? So like
okay.
if because this is affecting not as many people versus, you know, like the black population is a lot larger than the transgender population, right? So I think that you should affect them first. I mean, you should support that cause first, and then, you know, go on to supporting, you know, whatever helps the most people. Like that's generally my claim, right? Like if yeah, so like I don't know. I don't think it's beneficial when you support these small causes first and then you look to, you know, support the bigger ones. You know, I think it's you should support the large causes and then move your way down. You know, I think that just makes sense. But obviously,
You can
everyone's
support
entitled
for
to.
multiple different causes, right? You
Right.
can advocate for all of them, and
But I think the
or
less
all
support.
of the ones that you feel.
Oh,
Are
absolutely,
good.
absolutely. But I think like it just comes down to like conviction, and if you're like about so many things, like especially when you're passing legislation and stuff, right? Like if you're trying to pass 10 bills at once, it becomes really difficult, right? Whereas like if people focus on one thing, like we want to end police brutality, we want to vote in someone who's, you know, who cares about our issues, you vote that person in, right? There's never going to be a candidate which is like, oh yeah, we agree with everything, you know, like that you say, like every single issue. It's never going to be the case. But if you focus on one thing at a time, then, you know, over time things will actually change, right? I think that's where the
Oh, so
my
you're saying
position.
like there's too many like issues to focus on right
Yeah,
now?
there's too many
We
things
focus
to
on
focus
like
on.
one or
Yeah,
like a fewer, then we can make more progress in the fewer
exactly.
than uh to the whole. But but the problem with that I feel is what Alex said as well,
Hmm.
and what Ragged said I think about like uh everyone's just selfish a bit. Everyone
Right.
really cares about their cause, right? And you
Mm.
need to be like aside from being the most practical in trying to get uh
Support.
legislation and progress developed
Right.
and to get more progress, uh you also need to consider what's fair for everyone.
Hmm.
Because
No.
and what's fair I feel is like just looking at everything at
Right.
once.
Right. Right.
yeah.
Unless it's like really pressing like the pandemic, you know?
Hmm.
Then it's like okay, we got to focus on that first.
Right.
That's
Right.
life or death. But in the US there's I'm not gonna there's still like life or death like issues,
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I
but
think.
not as many as like
Yeah,
the
abroad.
more the other countries, you know.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. Like external issues, like, you know, obviously, you know, Lebanon, there's famines. You know, Yemen, there's, you know, wars. There's literally wars going on, proxy wars. So, I mean, obviously, you can't compare them, you know, equally. Obviously, I think externally, obviously, there's more issues to deal with, but, you know, we kind of focus on here. And even inside here, you gotta focus on, you know, what is gonna save more lives. I think that's more important, right? But okay, fair enough. Um, I did find the study, and I want to point out some facts that are
Hit
stated in
us
the
with
study.
it.
So the study is by the one second, just loading. What is this? The Millennial Impact Report. and it's talking about gender impacts on societal changes. So some of the key things that it does state is, so the top ways which each gender support is in support of a cause would be, so for males it's voting, signing petitions, contacting political reps, social media, and then marches. For women it's voting. One of them is no action taken. One of them is petitions again, then social media, and then changing their purchasing behavior. So I mean, it shows how males and females kind of have a different outlook on how to solve these issues. Also, it has stated that female millennials' involvement in social change dropped while male involvement remained steady or increased since 2016. So we can see that women have decreased from, what is this, 15 to, I mean, from 26 to 15%, and then men have stayed pretty much the same from 25 to 26%. So this is all in the report, but I mean, I find that kind of strange. Like I like generally when, you know, me personally, I go to social media, you'll see a lot of, you know, girls posting about issues like this. It's not necessarily the guys, but I mean, this is telling a different story. Sample size isn't extremely large. It's 3,000 people, but I think that should be, you know, fine to actually, you know, create
Is it
this
like in
report.
the U.S. or
It's the U.S.
Canada
Yes.
or?
U.S.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Yeah, I feel like when you come to the U.S. in general, I feel like it's depending even on like the state, for example. Like, was this like within a university year of some sorts, or?
Yeah, so it's between 16 and 24.
Oh, 16 and 24 states. Yeah, because I feel like there's like certain
Oh no,
what do you call them,
the age group is
states?
16 to 24, but it incorporates every
Oh,
state.
the age group, 16 and 24. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's more like an adolescent group. Yeah, I guess.
Um,
Honestly, I find it kind of interesting. I kind of wasn't expecting that with you know, males staying around consistent and then
Right.
females dropping, because I feel personally that females would be more involved with you know, activism compared to before.
Right.
I mean, of course, there was the whole surgence, you know, during the women's rights movements. Like
Mhm.
that was like almost 100 years ago. But like I would have expected that sort of to stay consistent. But I guess it is interesting nonetheless to see that.
Yeah, it also states
Yeah,
that
that goes against what I think as well.
it also states that a lot of this is because of the change in administration. So a lot of it was because of, you know, Trump coming into power. So since then, women have significantly stopped taking, you know, actively, you know, pursuing these social changes because they don't have any confidence in the government, which I found quite interesting. I would
Yeah,
think
'cause
that it's
I
kind of
feel it would
opposite.
be contradictory.
Yeah, I know. That's
Yeah,
what
I find it almost like, yeah. I would assume they would probably be more. I've honestly, it even feels like when I go on social media, it feels like there's more activism, whether it's in the form of commenting on Trump's tweets or whether it's in the form of,
Yeah.
you know, posting or just literally saying anything regarding the administration, you know, like any criticisms, whether valid or invalid, you know, it's a
When
form of, you know, they're being, you know, would that actually count as activism? Like, you know, when you're going on his tweets, like, you know,
That's
going
a good
against what he's
question.
saying, calling him
I
like
think so.
orange.
Is that? See, I feel like
Okay,
that's just
calling
hate.
him
Like you're
orange
just
is
spreading hate.
not really. I thought you meant like like
Like refuting,
combating
like,
arguments. Yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
not
no,
everyone.
I mean,
Calling
the whole
that-
orange thing, that's just more of a meme, but like in general, yeah.
I think that anytime you go on a Trump post, like literally every like Twitter comment is just either, you know, spreading hate or something like that. I find it so I don't think you can consider that activism, right? Like what does that really do?
Very hostile. It's very hostile.
It's extremely
I
hostile,
don't think
but
that helps either.
I don't
It's
think
like that guy- I always
it's not
think that guy-
productive. It's not productive because
Hmm.
if you're on the other side of, say, the political issue that you're fighting for, right, and you see that, it's just gonna
it's bad.
it's gonna, what's the word, like devalue the attempt, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
like
It's gonna-
devalue what they're trying to like. come
Yeah,
across,
exactly, and it's gonna make
Hurt
what
their
they're
stance.
yeah,
right?
it's gonna hurt their stance and their position because
Mhm.
they said like a hateful thing, you know?
Yeah, no,
Um,
for sure. I agree.
So Zed, where do you know when the study was conducted?
2017, I believe.
2017.
Yeah.
So like 2016, where like Trump got.
Yeah, yeah. So
First
like right
election,
after, like a year after the thing. So the stats were based off then, right? So,
Oh,
Um,
okay, yeah.
I guess if sort of there would have been that mutual feeling of almost, like a lot of people were feeling almost defeated after the
yeah,
election. So I guess in a sense
that's
that would have caused a lot of people to turn away from. But I mean, even then, you would have seen a similar sort of trend in males. It's only in females, which
yeah,
is
which I
kind of
found
strange.
strange. But I mean,
That's wild.
yeah. I mean, I guess it's. Hmm.
I mean, do you have any ideas for why you think that trend is there?
I'm thinking. Honestly, what I think it comes down to is people have just given up, like they just feel hopeless. But I don't know why it would be for both. I think it's commonly known that men generally tend to vote for Trump more, and then um, because there are more people that vote for Trump, it's not necessarily that only Democrats are supporting these social issues. I think a lot of Republicans are also supporting these social issues. I'm not going to say like all of them. It's definitely a larger proportion of them are Democratic. But so like in this study I have here, the PEW Research Center, 42% of Democrats are like in support of these social issues. So they'll send a post, or they'll post a picture, or write a Facebook thing, and 28% are Republican. Obviously, like I think there's bound to be a gap between those two numbers, but I didn't think like there would be a portion that actually does this. Like 28%, it's still a quarter. I still think that, it's a fair that, and like a lot of that is male, right? Like a lot of Republican voters tend to be male, so um, I think that's why
That's
like that number is
really
kind of more
weird, yeah.
consistent. Um,
Like, I can't see why
yeah, it's
uh
definitely.
like female involvement would be going down
I
while
know.
male involvement increases
I
during
think
2017.
I think you have to show some level of cynicism towards the study anyway, like any study, right? Because
Right.
it's like what, like a 3,000 sample size.
Right.
It depends where your sample comes from too, right? Like you get selection bias and stuff. So yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. Like if you do a different study, it could just as easily change and have
Yeah.
like a different
Right.
conclusion. So yeah.
Yeah. So the study was a non-probability sample of 3,000 participants matching the same demographics for an opt-in panel. Obviously, yeah. The more studies you conduct, the more like the data will change, right? So I don't think that's something that we can't use this as gospel, obviously, but I think it does show something. Like the thing about
Depends
sample
which state as
sizes.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Obviously.
it gives you an estimate. Like it
Yeah.
just
When you
depends
do.
on how good it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. Um. Yeah. So I'm gonna move on to the videos. So if you guys just want to give me 1 second. Wait a minute. Oh, this is so odd. Oh, here we go. So I'm just gonna start with the first video, and I'm gonna deafen you guys real quick.
Because why? I'll tell you why. And this is our question of the week. We saw what happened to Nate Robinson, so I'm going to ask Jake Paul right here in front of America. Jake, considering where we are right now in our racial conversation in America, was what you did to Nate Robinson racist?
That is the question of the week.
Man,
Nah, stop playing with me. Come on.
listen, Jake, it's a sensitive time right now. We just had to witness a white man just knock a black man smooth out in front of all of America. So that's why I asked that. But just tell us about that moment real quick, because it looked like Nate was asleep before he ever even hit the canvas.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we train for. You know, at the end of the day, boxing's a sport, and you know, you train to win, and that's what I went in there and did, and I worked hard for this. And Nate is the one who called me out originally. So
I think he is frozen.
Hey, can you hear me now?
yeah, I can hear you guys now.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay,
my
that's-
Wi-Fi is unstable, like my relationship.
Okay, Okay, so let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
First and foremost, was it racist to knock a black man out? That is the question of the
No,
week.
stop asking me that. I said no.
It's not racist.
It's a shitty question. It's a sport.
Why is
That's
it a
what you
shitty
train to do.
question? Why is it a shitty question?
Because how does this have anything to do with race? It doesn't.
It's a
At
fine
least-
question. We got to wake you up. You got to be a part of this conversation.
That's right.
It's like, because if you can go from
He's laughing.
if
You know what? He just hit himself harder than Nate Robinson ever hit him.
yeah, if you can go from
Second cue before you.
Okay. So everyone's seen the video. I just showed it to everyone else. You guys all saw the video, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you guys,
Yes, brother.
do you guys think that knocking a black person out is racist? Yes or no?
Oh,
Absolutely.
what the fuck?
I didn't know that.
Do you? Okay, but do you think that this kind of stuff is like dangerous to people? You know?
Yeah, very, very
Wait,
dangerous.
what are you talking about? What's dangerous to people?
I think that
The
when
Nate
you-
Robinson chick.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, right. You're talking about that one, right? Yeah.
What about it being dangerous? Like, what is
I
dangerous?
think that when you have a channel like proposing that something like this is racist, you're gonna have a lot of radical people, which are gonna be like, "Yo, that's messed up." Like, white people aren't allowed to, hurt black people. Or you're not allowed because obviously this is like a,
Okay.
this is like an event, right? They signed contracts. Like this is a legally binding thing, which is why it was done, right? But when you have like people saying that, oh, this is wrong, like you're not supposed to do this, it kind of like portrays something to the public, right? There's people that watch that show, and it's just kind of, it's like I think it's the equivalent of Trump telling people to, I think he told people to take the malaria medicine, in response to COVID, right? Like when you're like saying stuff like that, obviously not everyone understands it's a joke. I don't know if he actually did it or not, but like there are some things which he said that obviously were meant to be taken as jokes, but when you say to such a large audience, it doesn't come off as a joke always, and it can be
Yeah.
hurting, you know what I mean?
It's just like
Yeah.
another sort of byproduct of just people not being able to read situation. I think in general it's a lot harder to joke about certain topics too, especially with how how much of a
Especially
fiery
nowadays.
climate everything is like Black Lives
Yep.
Matter, as you mentioned earlier. It's just you can't be making jokes like that anymore.
It's too
you know,
politically driven nowadays, There's like people try
Like-
to find politics and a meaning behind everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, what you said about like the radical, like it won't help for the people that are radical.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of people are radical on either side,
Yeah,
So, like-
obviously it's a small portion, right?
The people who look at it and say, "Ah, that's racism," I don't think that's a lot of people.
But it's
yeah,
just
it's just like
not-
a vocal minority. Like the people who speak
I-
up about
I
it the
feel
most,
like-
are, like a very small subgroup.
The vocal, yeah.
I feel like it also damages the cause of the people who made the joke, Like, because the other side is gonna look at it and they're just gonna see it as like, wow, what a stupid question.
yeah, like
Right.
Not gonna lie, the memes are pretty funny, but like, yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't think it's racist.
And then it's gonna cause other people to question the validity of the movement,
yeah, exactly. It
Like
gives them a
the other
bad-
side's gonna see this like they're gonna see two black anchors ask a white athlete like, hey, is it racist to knock out a black person? And they're just gonna think, wow, what a ridiculous question to ask. Right?
Yeah,
Even if it was a joke, they're just gonna see it and further, I guess, devalue the movement
I
that they're
agree.
trying to support. You know what I mean?
100%. No.
They're gonna see this stupid question and they're gonna think, wow, maybe the movement itself is stupid.
Yeah.
If the movement is supporting these kind of questions being asked, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like one of those questions that's just trying to, basically spark a sort of reaction. Kind of like that one Mike Tyson interview with the CP24 where
Boy.
yeah, Jason remembers it. It was like
What happened?
Yeah, what happened?
Basically, Mike Tyson was partying with Rob Ford, I think, back in Toronto. This is a couple years. This was years ago, right?
Rob.
And then he went on CP24 an interview, and then the interviewer asked him like, "You being a convicted rapist, do you think this is gonna affect his re-election?" Something like that.
Oh man.
And Mike Tyson just like cussed him out, dude. Yeah. I mean, yeah, but like, why would
Goodness.
you ask that kind of
like
question?
what was that
Well, the
question
cuss
trying to
out, dude.
achieve, right?
He's
Yeah.
trying to get him to bite his ear.
And it's just trying to get like an inflammatory response. I feel like it's almost like a similar sort of situation with the whole Jake Paul question. It's just like the reporters are trying to get like an sort of response that it goes well both ways for them. They get a good well thought out response. Sure, they'll take that. If they get like a bad response where he says something stupid, it's like that's good for them too. It's like
No.
I think what
and
Jake
if it
Paul
like
said in the
cusses them
video.
out, it looks good on them too. It looks bad on Jake. Like I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of how people just sort of take it too. I think a lot of people are kind of people have their brains. They're gonna look at like the whole question and be like, "What is this?" Like, even like whether like Jake Paul cusses them out, they're not gonna like side with the reporters and be like, "Damn, why did he cuss the reporters out? How dare him?" or whatever. But that's kind of like I digress.
Mm.
I think in general, just as a joke, it was just
in
a
poor taste.
poorly executed joke.
Yeah.
Jake
I-
Paul's reaction in that video
It was
was pretty
it just
justified.
wasn't good all around.
I mean, you could tell like he's
In
been
my
asked that
opinion.
before, right? Like it's not like it's the first time he's been asked that, and people are saying that, right? So I think like it frustrates someone like that, right? When obviously they have.
Or-
Sorry.
Are we still talking about? Are we talking about Mike Tyson or
No,
Jake
we're
Paul?
talking about Jake Paul. Talking about
Okay,
Jake
okay.
Paul. But
Yeah.
no, he's definitely been asked that, and because of like the social climate, right? Like it just makes it harder for him to like like he won, right? Like he should be celebrating that kind of thing, right? But now everyone's like, oh, you didn't deserve to win, or like was it messed up for you to win, right? Like you take away from his credibility as well, right?
Yeah.
Even though like I'm not the biggest fan of Jake Paul, but like he won, he deserves to enjoy his moment. And when people are like, yo, you can't knock out a black person that was racist, it just takes away from his win as well, right? And I think that's kind of unfortunate, right? He didn't do anything to deserve that, right? So
Okay, not like everyone is saying that.
there's
Saying
not
just
but,
like the
it's
yeah.
the vocal minority, right? That's the problem.
Yeah.
So when the vocal minority comes out and says things like that, right? Like that's when the issue comes to play, right? Like if it was, even if it's a small amount of people, a lot of people are happy that he won. It's not like like that small amount of people have more of an impact than all the people that are just like, oh yeah, cool, he won. Like me, you, I'm sure all of us were like, cool, he won, whatever. But when people are like going on Twitter and being like, yo, you're messed up for black, knocking me out, then it just becomes it takes away from the win, in my opinion. But
Yeah, it's almost like they kind of make themselves look bad too. Honestly, like for me, when I saw that kind of stuff, I just thought like, damn, that's like the stupidest thing I've seen in a while. Bro, like there's actual issues going on in the world regarding black violence towards black people, and then you're saying like a proper legal match where
Right.
their races, it shouldn't have been identified as a white versus a black athlete. It should just been identified as two
athletes, right?
male athletes that are
Exactly.
competing for a title.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like race shouldn't have even been a issue or a matter. Shouldn't have
Exactly.
just not been brought up in general.
Yeah.
It's dumb.
and-
Exactly.
If the fight was racially charged, like if
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like if it was a racial thing to begin with, then I'd say like it's kind of sus. But actually, no,
Yeah.
I don't think it's sus in that regard either. I just don't think there's any like race
So,
aspect.
so what if Jake Paul went into the fight knowing that he only wants in the fight because he's fighting a black guy? He's like, I want to beat up a black guy.
Oh, if
Well,
he
Well,
then
then
said
he
that,
explicitly says
yeah.
it.
Exactly.
then
yeah.
then he's
Then it becomes
racist.
racist, right? But there's no
Yeah,
intention.
I mean, that's crazy if
I
he
mean,
actually said that kind
but
of
then
shit,
you're
bro.
going into intentions, right? You don't know Jake Paul's intentions.
Yeah,
Because
obviously.
from the outside, I see Jake Paul going, like wanting to take this fight up, because one he was like already like a well-known name, and
Yeah, sure.
I just see the money, bro. I
I
see
think
big money for both parties.
it was Nate.
yeah, like
Nate Robinson who
like-
who initiated the fight, right? He's like, yo,
Yeah.
I just know new.
oh, he
YouTuber, right?
initiated it.
Yeah, Robinson
Yeah, he
initiated
brought
it.
him out.
So like,
And that begs the question of like past fights too. Like, why didn't you ask this when
yeah, when he fought
a black guy
KSI
knocks out a white guy?
KSI
for
Logan
example.
Paul, right? No one said that then.
Yeah, right. Like, why didn't they ask KSI, hey, is it racist to knock out a white guy? You know,
Yeah, no, I agree. Completely agree. Okay.
right? In that case, I think Logan Paul initiated the challenge as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think it was
an
initially him,
ongoing
yeah.
thing, right? Yeah.
Right?
Like-
It's just
Yeah,
the wrong
Like Brad
climate
said.
to ask that kind of shit. So to answer your question, no, I personally don't think it's racist
Mhm.
at all.
At all. Okay.
Yep.
it was a money move.
Okay.
Yeah, like they both made like big amounts of money. Kudos to
A
them.
lot of money, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it was all money motivated, right? Aside from that, I don't think they really care about each other, right?
Or
Yeah, I don't
maybe,
think they like have any bad blood between each other.
honest,
especially
or
not now.
maybe Cause okay, I thought this was just memes, you know, like like the 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 fight being racist,
Mm-hmm.
but it still kind of gives the fight more attention, more money, you know.
For sure, for sure. Yeah.
Maybe that's a money move too.
True, true. I mean, but that was after, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So just give me 1 second, guys. I'm just going to show the next video. I'm just gonna deafen you guys real quick.
All right.
Super quick video. Nothing much there. Okay. Take this off.
Oh yeah, there were some. There were some.
Wait,
Okay.
didn't you just say police officers?
So yeah. So
That's
this
the
is
title of the video.
yeah. So this is like the no. I put on the second video. So the police officer who's racing the black kid.
Oh,
Yeah, the Instagram video. So, do you guys think that this is racist?
No.
No.
I
no.
think it was just a
No.
I
joke.
think it's just
This
two
has to be
men
a meme.
messing around.
I think
Yeah.
it is racist. Like I think this is racist, right? Like especially like in the context and stuff, right? Like I think it's a racist thing to do. Obviously, because everyone made a joke out of it, it becomes not racist, right? Like, oh, okay, you made a joke out of it, but like it's a messed up joke to make, right? Like, oh, you're a black guy, you're running. I'm calling in. I'm gonna shoot you, right? Like that's it's a inherently it's a racist thing, right? But because everyone was like, oh, it's a joke. Obviously, there's no ill intent here. It's fine, right? But I think that at the end of the
Wait,
day,
did I say the wrong?
it's the
Wait,
second-
was there that much behind it? Like in terms of like, or is that more of an like post analysis sort of thing? Like people talking, discussing the context
I
of the
think
video.
Zed's just like
No, I'm-
analyzing. It's
yeah.
like what it. Yeah.
like the actual
at
act
its
of
core,
doing
what
it.
it is.
Yeah. No, like
Like, in
obviously,
terms of a symbolic way?
yeah. Like the reason I say this is because like you can do something racist, but like I assure you, if the people didn't take it that way, like if everyone was just laughing and they because they laughed, it's okay. But if they weren't laughing and they're like, yo, that's messed up, then it becomes racially motivated. You shouldn't have made that joke. It's like going to a like being let's say you're at like the TSA, you're at an airport and everyone's like, oh yeah, I got a brown person with a bomb or something like that, right? I think it comes down to that, right? If they're laughing, then yeah, it's cool, whatever. But in this case, like it's the act, the things that he did make it a racist joke. I don't know. How do you guys feel about it?
Like I feel like it's kind of a stretch. I wouldn't say it's necessarily like I can see why, especially in this political climate, it is like I feel like honestly the police officers may have had like he may have raced like a black child for the purpose of inclusivity and sort of sort of showing like a positive relationship between an officer and a black kid. But some people can take that the opposite way, that this is almost going back to our first topic, where they're kind of almost doing it for show in a way.
Mhm.
But like I mean, I personally don't think it's racist, just because I think the more we
Yeah.
read into things,
It's
we
a
can
joke.
overanalyze almost like any sort of content we see.
No, I
Like
think
literally anything we can like sort of derive racial undertones from, like not racial undertones, sorry, like we can. Okay, this is such a blanket statement, but yeah, like I think you can almost make anything racist if you kind of look hard enough, and I think that's kind of
you
what
think so?
people.
But you don't.
Yeah, I don't see it inherently racist. Like,
I don't think it's racist.
I think it's trying to make satire of something that is racist, which is,
Mhm.
mm, I guess you
The
could say the
action-
thing that it's trying to satirize is
The shooting.
a
of-
white police officer calling in for backup because of a young black male running.
Yeah.
I guess
Exactly.
that in general is what we can consider racist here.
Yeah.
But I don't think the video itself is racist, because I don't think there's anything racist about the actual video other than the fact that it's trying to make what
Yeah.
I just talked about, like it's trying to satirize it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So like he intended for it to be a joke, right? And which is why it's okay, right? There wasn't
Yeah.
any ill intention behind it, right? But is making
Yeah.
racist jokes okay? Like, can we just make that okay? Because like, what if we did that to a
I
brown
don't
guy,
really
or if,
think
what if
about
we did
the.
that to an Asian guy, right? Like we're like, oh, we're in an Uber, right? Say I'm in an Uber and I have an Asian guy driving me, right? A Chinese guy. I'm like, yo, don't crash into the pole or some shit like that. You know, I make a driving joke, right? Is that okay? Because like, if we say
Well,
this is okay,
I don't think that video was really. I wouldn't really call it a racist joke. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I
Like
don't.
that and like being in the drive, like getting a drive and then call it's like, oh, yo, don't crash. That I feel like those two would be completely different.
okay, but what's different in this in that?
I guess okay.
What if
For
you?
one, I think in the video both of them are in on it, right?
What do you mean in on it?
Like they both understand
That
that
it's a
it's a
joke.
joke.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that was implied, right? He didn't say like, oh, that's a joke. He just assumed
Well, we
that
don't know.
people
It's
take
like a
that as a joke.
5-second video, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
I feel like it's it's two different situations
right,
because one, you're actually attacking the person with the joke, like you're speaking specifically to an Asian person.
right.
While this video, I feel like is more of like it's touching on a social issue that we're dealing with today. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
Like, it's not. I guess you could use my logic to say that the white police officer was attacking the black teenager directly by making the police officer joke.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it feels like it's more touching of the social issue rather than targeting him because of his skin color or something. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So,
I don't know if
Mm.
it's.
so like, would you say the same about like a gay joke? Like, you know, like you're taught like beside a gay guy, or like there's like a gay community around, and you make a gay joke like, oh, you suck a lot of dick or something like that, right? Like, you look like you suck a lot of dick. You know, saying something like that. That's obviously it's kind of the same case, right? Or where do you think that differs as well? Like, I'm walking beside the street. I'm like, yo, you look like you suck a lot of dick, or something like that. Do you think that's kind of differing from the situation or no? Because I don't think people will take it.
I
well,
think
right?
it would be. Because I think okay in the video, right?
Right.
It seems like it was kind of planned, you know what I mean? Like,
I mean,
or I thought it was at least.
I,
It's like if you're just walking by a dude in the street and you say that, like it'll catch him off guard. But I think in this case,
okay.
you already have you have some sense that it's not gonna be racially driven.
Right, right. Okay, fair enough. Right. I'm just gonna show
Yeah,
you.
I guess like
I think it's like, like the difference would be like in the video, it kind of looked like the police officer and the kid, like they already knew each other, so on
Right.
some sort of level, they didn't just meet at like for the first time.
Right.
So
Yeah. So like with your
saying it
friends.
to someone
yeah.
on like some random person on the street who you like have no idea who this person is, and you say make a gay joke, that's a lot different, and that's a lot more offensive than making this racist joke with the black with the kid who you
Yeah, you probably know from
like
before.
most likely know.
Yeah. Okay. Um. Okay. Like I wanted to paint a similar scenario. Let's say there's a teacher and a student, right? And the student's like, "Yo, Mister, whatever," like, and he makes a gay joke there. Like, if it's a teacher-student relationship, does that become the same thing? I guess it depends on the interpersonal relationships they have with the people, right?
Yeah, it depends on the relationship for sure.
Yeah. So like, if you have a good relationship with someone, I guess you could possibly make that joke, but yeah, I guess it would be.
even then, I don't think any like teacher. I think like even outside of a video sort of thing, like what in the sense that this was pretty much a skit, you could think of it that way. I don't think outside of a skit, like an everyday regular conversation, I don't think we'd see this kind of stuff happen. Does that kind of make sense? I mean, like then again, I can't speak for everyone because I'm almost making like a blanket statement. But I personally think everybody, or at least a large majority of people, make these kinds of jokes within their own subpopulations. They have their own sort of self-targeting,
Right,
sort
right.
of like jokes to
Self-deprecating,
make
yeah.
about themselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess it's kind of different when another person. So for example, like the police officer is making a joke with the black kid, But I guess overall, it just depends on group to group, Just also there's kind of certain boundaries each group has, and I personally can't say anything in regards to that because I don't know much. But yeah. guess that's kind of like my stance.
Okay, fair enough. Does anyone have anything else to add? All right, so I'm just gonna show the last video, and then we'll just talk about it, and I think that should be it. So just give me one moment, guys. This is the Andrew Shultz video.
What are you? You're Arabic? Y'all came out here? You blend the fuck in, huh? Holy shit, dude. These Arabic guys are good. I could have swore y'all were Mexican. You got the flannel and shit. This guy ready to go, bro. Turn that to this real quick. Y'all are Middle Eastern? You're Middle Eastern? Y'all not Mexican at all? You a little bit. I can see you the most. He's just chilling in the cut quiet, but you two guys could be Mexican. You are Mexican, right? Damn, bro. You thought you had a squad, bro. You thought you met the S's, bro. Nah, you got played, dog. Got fucking played, bro. What type of Middle Eastern, dog? Palestinian. Oh, shit. Does that exist? No, I'm joking. I heard a Jew laugh really loud over there. You heard that one laugh? Ah, 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 ah. Now that was a good one. I like that joke. Very funny. We found one Mexican. You're just holding it down for La Raza way. I hear you, bro. I don't even know if I believe you're Mexican now. What do you got? What are you busting out? A cross? They got Christian Palestinians? You ever heard of Jesus? Oh, fuck it, you're right, bro. That motherfucker was from there. What about you guys, man? You're Mexican, you gotta be. I got that shit down, bro. But you're not, you're Asian. What type of Asian are you? What? What? Did you just say your last name? You're from Pong? Is that near Ping? No wonder y'all so good at that shit. No, Pong is a type of Asian? Oh, Hmong. Hmong. Huh. Son, y'all knew that one, bro? Asian miss, did you know that one? Hmong? Do we have you in New York? I usually know my Asian shit. This is new to me. Hmong. What, from what country? If you say Hmong, I'm gonna flip out. Miss, did you really know about this? Are you Hmong too? You're Chinese and Vietnamese. All right, I know those. Normal. This one over here is nuts. They're the Palestinians of Asians, bro. You're not even sure if they really existed. Wait, Hmong, but where is Hmong? We don't have a country. Yo, son! Yo, son! Bro, he ain't saying shit the whole time. Hey, neither do we, bro. It's okay, you'll get there one day, bro. Keep it on.
Well, that's the video. I'm just gonna go back to the call real quick. Okay. So, have you guys gone through the video?
Yes, we did,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. How do you guys feel about that?
About which part
wow.
of the video?
Yeah, it's really long.
I'm gonna be honest. The video is hella funny, bro. Like that's a funny ass video. I love Andrew Schultz. Like Andrew Schultz is a great
Yeah,
guy.
I like Andrew Schultz too, but I think comedians should be able to make jokes about anything.
So they just get the pass. So they just get the racism pass.
It's a
Yeah.
joke.
Can they make
No?
N-word
Well-
jokes? Like, are we just giving them passes on everything? Like, why is that okay?
I mean, if it's racially profiled, or if it's like racially like probably not.
It's not okay.
But
bro.
that's
That's
probably
a tough
because
topic, actually. Yeah.
yeah, that's
like what?
because that's like
yeah.
the money shit, you know?
If we make that joke, like if I went to a bar and I made that kind of a joke, or if I went to school and made a joke like that, like I would get like I would be canceled. Like it would be over. Like I'm like, yo, what kind
Yeah,
of
that
Asian are
shit
you,
straight up
bro? Like, but then when comedians do it, like we're like, yeah, that's okay because everyone's laughing. It's obviously it's satire. It's meant to be funny. But why is it okay? Like I don't understand.
Yeah, I think like sort of another, point that comedians try to make is how they try to equate their form to an art, in a sense where they say, you can't really impose any sort of rules or restrictions because, that kind of, I forget exactly what they say regarding that matter, but I think you guys kind of get the gist where it's like, when you're kind of imposing on what the comedians can
Limitations.
say, you're pretty much going against the craft in of itself, it's like censoring art. But at the same time, it's like, say for example, you have artwork of like a little literal swastika or like some Nazi symbolism.
That's not
It's
okay,
like,
right?
is that really art or is that just straight up racism? Like even with these kinds of jokes, obviously, I guess you can see with the crowd themselves,
Mm-hmm.
that they're all having a
They're
good
all
time.
receptive
They're
to it.
enjoying for
They,
the most
yeah.
part, or like maybe they're actually all just racist for all we know, like.
Yeah,
But
like,
it's such like a weird area for comedians. I noticed, like especially when they're making those kinds of jokes, it's super like like, you gotta tiptoe
Yeah,
around that.
I think
So twin?
go ahead, Twin.
I think once the comedian like wins over the crowd, gets the crowd on the comedian side, the comedian can get away with a lot of shit. Like they
Mm.
can say a lot of offensive shit, and
Like
they can get away with it.
like getting away with it, is this like a good or bad thing, do you think? Because I
Yeah.
think it's like normal as long as like he's not like being it's not like
Well, like, do you
if it's a joke, then I think it's fine.
yeah, but
But yeah.
do you think that if he made an N-word joke, they would be as receptive?
Probably hear a
No.
big like "whoa" from the crowd or something like that.
Right? Like, I don't think they would be okay with that.
That
But
would catch everyone aback. Yeah.
right, but
Well, I
he-
think comedians also have like an understanding of their crowd, like how they can lose a crowd, how they could keep a crowd, So I don't think they would just do that if they're like,
Yeah.
right.
yeah.
I understand, but like, it's okay to poke at these social issues versus it's not okay to touch this. Like, why is that the case? Right? Like,
Yeah, like how he's kind of like targeting, like Asian groups, and then he's
Yeah.
targeting also like Jewish people. It's kind of sets a double standard in a sense, where it's like he's talking and joking, but these groups like they're all having like no problem with it whatsoever. And then if he starts speaking about black people, or if he drops like an N-bomb, for example, like I guess dropping like a slur is different than dropping a joke. Maybe if he did say a joke towards like black people, or if
I
there
mean-
was a black person in the crowd, it might have been different. But
Andrew,
it's weird.
Andrew does say a lot of slurs too, though. I mean, like he says retard, he says faggot, he says all these things, right? And he's just like the crowd is receptive to it. Like it doesn't. He gets away with that kind of stuff, and like
Well, yeah, like Twin said, he knows his crowd, and if his crowd didn't like those words, then he probably wouldn't use them. But
right.
it's also not dropping words, It's part of if it's necessary for the joke
Right.
to like take place, like or like the art piece to fit in, like if it has like a social commentary on something,
Mm-hmm.
then I don't think that's too much of a problem because it's an expressive form, subjective.
Right.
Let people decide if they want to watch it or not.
Right. Yeah, but like that could like mean that you're gonna have more racists watching a show like this, right? Not obviously, it doesn't necessarily mean that, but like, it could imply that
You
because
can,
he's okay with that, more racists
Yeah.
will come and flock to him, right?
I mean, they won't flock to him because he said a bad word. They'll flock to him because he's racist and he follows their ideals. But like, as long as he can express his ideals, to know everyone that he's not being racist. But
Right.
and like Twin said, has have the audience on his side to know that hey, he's not racist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's like
Do you think
yeah.
if he
But on the
defended-
topic of like the N word, I don't know if he. That's a very difficult question, especially if like, he, I can't answer that either because I'm not.
yeah, you're not African
not-
American.
Yeah, like for example, like when he was joking about
Neither is
Asian
he as
people,
well.
and if he dropped like a C, the C slur, like would
Yeah.
it be like a similar sort of gravity to the word as the N word, for example? Like if he was
Yeah.
joking in that regard, like it's all super subjective, and I mean
Yeah.
like, has he ever actually said like slurs before in
Oh,
his jokes?
like
Like I'm not talking about like like the ones you mentioned. I'm talking more like racial slurs.
I don't think he's ever said the N word, as far as I know. I mean, he may well have, but in general, I think he tends to avoid it, right? But like he'll go after race related jokes like pretty much every show he has, and
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of where he draws the line too, because like in a sense, his kind of comedy, it's more so like making fun not on a racial undertone, more so just stereotypes. Whereas when you kind of drop like an N bomb or something, that's just literally racism. It doesn't really add anything to his humor or joke.
Yeah. It's not a joke. Yeah.
so you think poking at stereotypes is okay? Like you think like that's his boundary, that's fine for him, and like
Like,
he doesn't
I'll-
deserve consequence for that.
Like honestly, I kind of think his jokes were a little much, which is kind of a lot for me.
Right.
But like then again, I don't watch stand up that much, so I have no idea about how sort of the jokes go along with them.
Right.
But for me, I thought it was like, holy crap, like this guy's really saying a lot.
Yeah.
They kind of like laughing and shit. Like like if you saw this like somebody saying that kind of stuff, on the street, for example, it's you get totally different reaction. But that's a completely different setting than like in a theater or a hall or some sorts where a comedian's
Mhm.
like, that's his sort of
That's
shtick.
yeah. That's like the art form, no? Like knowing how to like do these mental and like artistic
Right.
Yeah.
like expressions of things to just jump around and talk about things in a way that everyone can enjoy or people can laugh at.
Right.
Like not Joe Rogan. Yeah, Joe Rogan does this very well in his like comedy shows where like
Right.
he'd like degrade himself but
Mhm.
also like throw something that may be controversial and then bring the audience back with some with like funny but like understanding like things.
So how do you think
Just
Joe's humor
yeah.
like differentiates from Andrew's, right? Obviously Andrew has like a certain demographic that he like goes for, right? How do you think Joe kind of does he do similar things? Like does he have similar jokes? Like what do you think he does that's different?
Well, this is like the only experience I have of
Stand up?
this comedian.
Oh.
What's his name?
Joe? Or Andrew Schultz?
Andrew Schultz.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen much, but
Mm-hmm.
I guess Andrew Schultz can, because based off of his background, can get away with a lot more things.
So you think it's okay because of his background? Like he like Joe generally doesn't do that, right? Like he doesn't his
Yeah.
jokes generally don't
know.
have as much racial undertone, right?
I'll have
Or
to
it's
like watch
stereotypes.
more Andrew Schultz stuff to like really see like what he does.
A lot of
Oh,
his content
yeah.
is based on that. Like that's his thing. Like he'll go after everyone. He's very well known for heckling. I mean, he's a funny ass dude. I love the guy. I love watching his stuff, but like and I do think it's racist, but I think it's funny at the same time, right? Like when you're pointing out these stereotypes and stuff, I think
You
it's
think
funny.
it's racist, but it's still like
It's accepted by society, right? Like certain racism is accepted by society, right? Like it's okay to do that. Like the black guy running, people accepted that. They're like, hey, it's fine. It's racist. Like obviously the undertone is racist, but it's fine. Like it's okay, right? Like I think that's what it's kind of come down to, right? We selectively select what is okay and what is not okay, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like
Yeah.
sort of the whole crowd, they determine the sort of flow of
Yeah.
what they just watched, they kind of decide whether what they saw was racist or whether it's just, a
Mhm.
joke. And I mean, essentially it is still racist, as you said, but
Mhm.
I guess there's kind of just like that sort of mutual understanding where like he's a comedian, and when he does make these kinds of jokes, if you try to censor him, it kind of infringes on his
His abilities.
sort of
and,
art
yeah.
form.
Freedom of
And
expression.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like and it's almost like it's such a weird topic actually. Now that I think about it, like I've never really thought about it
Like
that in depth. It's like like it is racist. It literally is racist, but
Yeah.
it's like
we ban hate
what's
speech, but
accepted.
is like is what he say is what he's
It's
is
intention, right?
is,
I think
is
hate
what
speech.
he's saying in his shows
Hate speech.
slurs or like hate speech? Yeah, yeah.
I don't think it's considered hate speech. I think for hate speech there has to be like a certain intention behind it, right? Like
Mhm.
just saying a joke doesn't necessarily mean that you hate these people. If like you say with like I don't know some sort of conviction or something, then it means something. But in general, like I think making a joke, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean like you hate those kind of people, right?
You know, you remember? This reminds me of like the Jerry Springer.
The
Is
Jerry
he the guy
Springer
from
show.
Seinfeld?
Yeah. The what's up with that guy? What's up with that guy?
Didn't he do like a show like a while back and then like got mad at like constant hecklers and then said a lot of racist things in his show?
Not too familiar with it. No, I'm not.
Maybe I digress. But
Mm,
yeah, it's a very hard topic to go.
yeah, I think.
I
But-
mean, the time during that show was pretty different too, right? Like,
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
that
for sure.
90s? So I feel like it would be kind of obviously, at the
Mhm.
end of the day, what he said is probably like not necessarily nice at all. It's pretty bad. It's like the political climate during that time was just pretty different too. I
Yeah.
mean, not I'm not trying to like undermine. Oh, just because back then times were different, it was okay to say that. It's still like I'd say it's still a bad thing to say that stuff
Mhm.
in general.
Right.
But
But I mean,
you
Schultz
know.
is saying it today. Like the things
Yeah.
people would say 10 years ago, Schultz is saying today, and like they're like, oh yeah, it's fine. You know.
Like
Like-
maybe he's a revolutionary then in that sense.
I like what
Bringing
he said.
racism
That
back.
it's not okay, but it's accepted.
Yeah, like it's not okay, but like generally
Like,
people are receptive to it, so they're like, okay, fine.
yeah. Like what we think is okay has been like shifted
Right.
since like even like a couple of years ago actually.
For sure. Yeah. Like.
So it really goes to show you how
I guess it's just how times are changing. Like things just
Yeah.
become. It's sort of even like every media in of itself, like whether it's art, music,
Mhm.
public speaking, everything sort of follows the flow. Changes with the flow of time. So I guess in a sense, comedy is kind of. It's almost like a sort of like wave of where there was a lot of racial jokes and then eventually it was toned down to a certain
Mhm.
degree. Like especially when there was a lot of racial tensions, but like they kind of have a resurgence. I think it's just at the end of the day, people realize like jokes like amongst yourselves, like your own self population, when you realize and identify that yes, they are jokes. Like yes, they're not meant to be. Like he definitely doesn't he doesn't have any ulterior motives or like any
Right.
negative intentions. With what he says, he's saying this all as a joke, and I think that sort of understanding needs to be established first before like you
Yeah.
can take these clips out of context so easily and just like show them, be
Easily.
like, damn, that's such a piece of shit.
Exactly, and I mean that has been done to a lot of celebrities too, right? A lot of celebrities have been canceled because of stuff like this, right? You take a tweet from like 5-6 years ago, it's very obviously something that's not acceptable today, but they'll be canceled for it, right? But like, it's weird how people will harp on some things, but they won't bat an eye to other, right? So I don't know. I found that really interesting. Like
I think, well, to be fair, I think, for example, you said some people harp on some things, but like bat their eye to another thing, right?
Yeah.
I feel like the people that would harp on whatever specific thing you're talking about, they wouldn't be like the target audience of like Andrew Schultz or something. Like they wouldn't be watching this sort of stuff.
But don't you think that people would those people would look at find something, because obviously he's pretty big now, especially on YouTube. Like, don't you think they would find something and like say like, oh, this is messed up, we're letting Andrew Schultz do this, should he not get canceled? Like, people have gotten canceled for far less, right? Why does he get the pass, right?
I think there probably are people like that, but at the same time, well, for me personally, I didn't know who this guy was. So
Right.
like I don't know, if he were to get like even bigger, maybe that would start becoming like a topic,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not sure. I think it might just not be on like the agenda right now. You know what I mean?
The agenda. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Do you guys have anything else? Any final statements? I think that's gonna be it.
Be nice to each other, guys.
All right, guys.
Feels good.
Yeah, just like an ending thing. All right, guys. So I'm just gonna.
give Security.
Nice. Alex, anything? Twin? Want to
Yeah,
shout out
I
your
enjoyed the talk on social activism and stuff.
Want to shout out your Twitch channel?
Yeah, sure. It's twitch.tv/TGRAlexZ or Z. So it's TGR Alex with a Z at the end. All right.
Yeah, Alex is
TGR
gonna go.
Alex Z, bro.
Alex is gonna
God
go pro in
bless.
Valorant, so just look
Sir.
out for him.
Thanks for having
Um,
me on the show, bro.
Jason, Twin, any last words?
I got nothing.
Twin.
Good words.
All right, awesome guys.
I got nothing.
All right, guys, take care. I'm just gonna mute you guys, right? Okay, well, so that's about it. That is gonna be the end of this week's podcast. I think it was obviously this is the first podcast, so I didn't expect it to go extremely well. Obviously, there was some technical difficulties. I did spend a lot of time trying to fix them, but didn't work out too well. So, I mean, hopefully next week. I don't know if it's going to be next week or the week after, but hopefully next week or the week after it's going to be a little more refined. We'll have different guests. We won't have the same topic. Obviously, we'll have a little bit more of a calm topic. But I don't know. Maybe next week we'll do sports or like sports or gaming or something like that. We'll see. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's podcast. Next week, hopefully either this Friday or next Friday it will be posted. We are now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, we're on Google Podcasts. We're getting up there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. Make sure to tune in for next week's episode, and we should have something new. All right. Thank you guys. Take care. All right. Bye bye.